I would like to talk to you all about today builds a little bit on the presentation that you just heard. Molecules are getting more and more complicated, and some of the tools that are available to all of you as formulators, as manufacturers, need to accomplish this with tougher and tougher medicines and allow to be able to get to market faster. What I like to tell the team is that all of the easy molecules are done. They're all gone. All of the easy small molecules, we're no longer formulating acetaminophen or ibuprofen. All of the molecules of today become more and more challenging to get into a oral solid dosage form. So for example, increasingly, there's a trend to take some of these very complex molecules, including biologics, and put them inside a capsule. This includes biologics, peptides, nucleic acids, live biotherapeutics, etc. These molecules are a little bit different than traditional small molecule chemistry in a sense that they are very challenging to get into the body, and also they can be degraded while you're actually formulating and manufacturing the products. Next, they need to get to a certain part of the body, because if they're not able to get there, your body will actually degrade those products themselves. And then, of course, there is an expectation of the industry to continue to innovate and to move along into newer and newer technologies and bring them to market faster. So there are opportunities here. There are opportunities to innovate, and that's what I'd like to discuss with you today. I want to start with the concept of oral biologics, and what I mean by that in a very, very broad brush. This is CPHI. We have biologics, everything from little tiny peptides through live biotherapeutics and all the way through monoclonal antibodies. And the holy grail right now is to be able to take these molecules and put them inside a capsule for oral delivery, and I will talk about that as we go through the presentation. I personally love this quote: "Drugs don't work in patients that don't take them." And the simple fact is, can I get a show of hands? Who actually likes getting an injection? I think it's pretty obvious, right? Nobody likes it. And in fact, there are a tremendous amount of people that simply will not take these medicines. And these are patients that, of course, all of the companies that are around here today would like to administer medicine to. 63% of people are, in fact, fearful of medicine, and about 15 to 20% of people on the market simply will avoid it at all costs. They simply will not take those medicines. Why is this a better outcome to go through oral besides just the fear of needles and the pain associated with that? Certainly less invasive, better compliance, better adherence to these different dosage forms, as well as to lower the overall cost of patient care, because now, in many cases, these do not need to be done in a clinical setting. And of course, we want to be able to improve accessibility. So no more cold storage, cold chains. You can now distribute some of these molecules in parts of the world that need access to affordable and accessible medicines. Now, what's interesting here is when you look at on this slide, the average biologic costs 22x the cost of a small molecule at an API level. And that's important. I want you to think about that as we go through. So again, most of the biologics on the market today are administered parenterally, and this is the target right now to be able to get these into oral forms. The challenges associated with oral bioavailability is, number one, you can't absorb them into the body. Number two, your body will try and destroy those molecules once they get in there. Three, the molecules are extremely expensive and sensitive while you're processing them, and that causes a lot of challenges. Heat, moisture, oxygen, water, etc. will challenge all of the molecules that are listed on here: mRNA, peptides, antibodies, and again, the holy grail is, can we get these molecules into an oral dosage form? In order to target it to the part of the body that we ultimately want to get these molecules to, very often we use a technology for enteric coating. The traditional way to do this is to take a tablet and to spray coat this tablet with an exterior coating. Sometimes this is delayed release. Sometimes this is more pH triggered to give an enteric protection. What that word means is it will be pH triggered. When it gets to a certain part of your gastrointestinal tract, it will now dissolve and release the medicine in your small intestine exactly where we want the medicine to go. That's the traditional route. There are problems associated with that. All of those molecules that I discussed before are not trivial. You can't just take them, blend them with MCC, and compress them into a tablet without destroying the molecules themselves, and thus you need better ways to get the drug to market. We also need it to be reproducible, and we need it to be scalable. And ultimately, we can't have this be a bottleneck in the development of the drug and delay it getting to market. The solution that Lonza has launched a couple of years back is actually a product called Enteric. So Lonza Capsugel launched this product a couple of years back. This is an all-encompassing enteric coated tablet. It is a bi-layer proprietary technology that allows for this product to encapsulate all of these sensitive molecules and bring them to market very quickly. You don't need compression, you don't need wet granulation, you don't need any other unit operations. You can simply use standard capsule filling equipment and put the product in there. But what I want to talk about today is what else are we doing with this type of technology, because this was launched a year or two ago, and now the question is what's next. First, we launched a size 9, which allows you to get into preclinical studies. This is specifically designed for rat studies. And in addition to that, we now can do full customization of this product at our Innovaform Center in Colmar, France. That's quite interesting because this is an on-the-shelf product. It's a product that we can send to you today. You can put it on the shelf in the lab, and as you have molecules that are sensitive, that you want to get targeted towards the small intestine, you can put your product in here and immediately go into the clinic. But what if your drug is more sensitive than that? What if you need a different type of polymer? What if you need oxygen protection? What if you want different colors, different sizes, etc.? We can fully customize this. What if you want to get to the colon and not to the ileum? We can fully customize the polymers that are actually built in here, and we can scale that up in our facilities in France, enabling you to get to market much faster. I want to show a couple of case studies as part of this talk today. These were done in collaboration with the University of Greifswald. Here we looked at basically two key areas. One, both of these were human clinical trials. We did these in fasted patients as well as in fed patients, and we were able to track the capsule itself and to watch and monitor the performance of it so that we can give our customers and collaborators confidence that this is a viable solution. So I want to show the first study here. So this was the Enteric capsule. It was done in humans, as I mentioned. The capsules were monitored in two different ways. The first way was they were filled with iron oxide. This gave a contrast agent, and we were able to monitor this with the patients in an MRI. The MRI was done continuously every minute and tracking the capsule as it goes through the human. And you can see it's fully intact here at 15 minutes. We're traveling into the stomach, and then we're sitting there, and then you start to see disintegration here at about 105 minutes. You can actually watch the capsule disintegrate, and of course you're using visual technology in order to monitor when that capsule disperses. The next, we used an API, quite common API. I'm using a lot of it right now, which is caffeine. What you may not realize about caffeine is this: about 1 minute after caffeine is released into your small intestine, it's present in your saliva. So you're actually able to monitor the patients for caffeine, and at the point that it picks up, you can see exactly when that drug was released. What was interesting about this study in fasted patients is that the residence time inside the stomach was about 45 minutes. It does vary quite a lot between patients, so you have plus or minus 30 minutes. That's pretty common. This was done with patients. They simply took the capsule with about 200 milliliters of water on an empty stomach after 24 hours. Afterwards, we were able to see that the capsule, once it got into the gastrointestinal tract, was able to disintegrate within about 45 minutes. And the caffeine was also present. So what you see here is when the capsule was disintegrated in the jejunum, in the ileum, and in the colon. And here you can see the difference between the caffeine marker as well as when we were able to monitor it on the MRI for when the capsule integrity was no longer there. In the next study, we were doing this under fed conditions. So this was a standard breakfast. My European colleagues like to joke that this was an American standard breakfast at 500 calories. Again, we used iron oxide as a contrast agent for the MRI, as well as detecting caffeine in the saliva. So very similar study that was done. Here, you can see that the residence time in the stomach was now quite a bit larger, about an average of 150 to 160 minutes. Very wide range, of course, depending on how people's digestion works. You can see here, these are all of the different patients in the study. And then shortly thereafter, it traverses into the intestine. And at that point, you follow a very similar release profile for the Enteric capsule. Once again, you can see the difference between the caffeine and the MRI technique was quite similar. And then once you strip out actually the gastro-residence time, again, it takes about 40 minutes for the capsule, once it enters into the small intestine, to be delivered to the ileum, which is where we were targeting. We're trying to go a little bit past the duodenum to avoid some of the enzymatic degradation that would harm some of the molecules that are on the market today that have peptide chains, for example. The other really important part of the study and why we undertook this clinical trial was to look at the disintegration time fed versus fasted, because now you have food in your system. And you can see here that both of these, there was no statistical difference between the release of the capsule once it was in the intestinal tract. So we did the study there. I wanted to highlight what else can you do with this type of technology. So as I mentioned earlier in the talk, you can actually fully customize these capsules. Right now they're set up primarily for powder filling. We can also fully customize them to actually fill them with liquid. And in many cases, you would want to use a liquid penetration enhancer or an oil-based formulation. I don't have it on the slides here, but we recently did a clinical trial using Zenatide, which is a GLP-1. And this required a C10 sodium caprate penetration enhancer in order to get adequate bioavailability. This is particularly challenging because, as I mentioned earlier in the talk, many of the biologics that people want to put inside the body, they have a bioavailability of most GLP-1s is in the low single digit. So all of those molecules, 22x the cost, and you're basically losing it. Consider that when you think about GLP-1s, everybody wants to put it into an oral dosage form because they want that 20% of the market, and they're still launching tablets and capsules to go into this market, knowing full well that that precious API that people are spending tens of billions of dollars to build up capacity on is being wasted. And that's how important this type of technology is. So as I mentioned, we can fully customize this for pH. We can also encapsulate devices, because once you get above a certain size, you're never going to get basically absorption into the GI tract without any type of physical penetration. And then also the compatibility with the different fills. We have a tremendous amount of experience that we leverage from poorly water-soluble drugs to bring into this type of capsule technology and bring these very challenging molecules to market. So as I mentioned, with the facilities that we have in Colmar, we're actually able to bring your concept to market. We're able to scale that up. We're able to change polymers, design, size, print, you name it. We have a number of customers that are already building this out, and we can also provide the equipment with which to fill all of these different capsules, encapsulate them, seal them, bring them to market, scale them up. We have a huge alliance of partners that we work with in order to commercialize this type of technology. Next, you may ask the question, well, are you only able to provide the R&D results from a capsule designed specifically for you and the formulation therein? Can you take it to market for us? And that's where we connect with our Tampa facility, which is a full-service oral solid dose CDMO. And this allows us to take that proof of concept, take all of those custom capsules and formulations, and scale them up and do everything under full GMP from end to end. We work with customers as early as preclinical all the way through commercial. We also work with highly potent APIs as well. We work with solids, we work with liquids, we work with everything that needs to get to market. We have a very strong commercial track record of products in that space. Just to give you an idea of some of the services that we provide at that facility, we can do full service drug product development, pre-formulation, formulation activities, analytical method development. We have specialty expertise also in dry powder inhalation, and we have a number of capsule technologies that allow for dry powder inhalation as well. Full GMP manufacturing and scale-up for oral solid dose. That includes tablets and capsules, as well as dry powder inhalation. We also have a DEA license up to Schedule 1, so we can basically work with any molecule that you can bring in the door. This includes also some of the challenging molecules like GLP-1s that we talked about earlier that leverage some of the technologies that we've mentioned today. We do have full GMP packaging, serialization, blister pack, etc. Be able to be basically an end-to-end full-service provider that includes product release, that includes warehouse stability, and the regulatory services therein. So in conclusion, what I wanted to share with you today, I don't know why I did that. We have the products, we have the tools. Our group is really focused on accelerating your formulations to market. You can take products that are off the shelf, but you can also work with your suppliers and your CDMOs like ourselves that can allow you to take those very, very complex molecules, put them into a formulation, and get them to market much faster. And these are the next molecules of the future. Quite frankly, there have not been blockbusters in the oral solid dose space in decades, quite frankly. These are them. They're here today. This is a patient population that wants this. They want the compliance associated with it. The regulators want these medicines to be accessible. You can see everybody working on these, and we have the tools with which to make this successful. And I want to thank you all for your time today.